We're here, episode 2 of the podcast. Haven't been cancelled yet, Sean. Often Racing's the name of the podcast, and we're in Goulburn here out at Matty Dale's farm. Matty, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, boys.
Matty, we were just out at the racetrack watching a few horses of ours work and a few of your own and stuff. Is that a typical morning for you? Like, what time do you start?
Yeah, look, that was a pretty typical morning. 4:30 kickoff for us, and the staff get there, and the horses are fed. They all get pre-walked, and then it starts to saddle up, and the system goes. So they all go out in lots of 3 or 4. And like as you boys witnessed this morning, we had some course proper gallops over the horses going to the Saturday race meeting this Saturday, and we had a few on the bee grass and a few on the sand. So it's good facilities there at Goulburn, and it's a nice big open balanced track. So and as we touched on, we just come out to the farm and had a look here what we got going on out here. And on Goulburn Racecourse, we don't have a swimming pool, so we built a swim dam out here on our farm, and we're able to bring horses out here that need to swim, and also bring them out here and give them a few days in the paddock to freshen up. So on a whole, this morning was a pretty usual morning for a Tuesday. Yeah.
And you mentioned the swimming pool and that you've put in a lot of facilities, a lot of money into the farm. What's the benefits of swimming one? Like, why would you swim one? Yeah,
look, everyone's got their different opinions on swimming. It's a great addition to fitness without the concussion effect. So effectively, you're increasing their fitness, or at some stages maintaining their fitness without any extra pressure on the feet, joints, overall body. And it's also mentally a stimulating factor for a horse. I suppose, you know yourself, you go for a swim, you feel good. So a lot of horses really enjoy it from a mental side of things as well. We don't swim them because we're out on the farm here and we bring them out from the track. We probably swim them a little bit less often than I used to at Canberra, but the trip out and back actually stimulates them as well. So no, we find it a really good tool, and when they need it, they need it. And a lot of gross horses that you want to just get that extra bit of fitness out of, like I say, without the extra pressure on their legs, the addition of swimming, it's not a replacement tool, it's an addition to your routines, is really beneficial.
Yeah, no, it's a great asset, definitely. As you said, it takes a lot of pressure off their legs and any horses that might have niggly little issues or that. So yeah, huge benefit. And you have a few other trainers that come out and use it? And
yeah, since I moved to Goulburn and we didn't have any stables on course, Danny Williams was kind enough to lease me half of his barn. So Danny and I have got an agreement that he's helping me out in there, and I help him out. He comes out and uses our swim facility here as well. So that all works in well, and so it's pretty much just us and Danny that use it, and it works good.
And do you leave the algae in for Danny's horses?
No, we keep it as clean as possible. Obviously, it is a dam, but we've sort of worked it out what keeps it clean, and we put an aerator in which gets switched off when they're swimming, and switch back on 24/7 outside of that. So there's a fountain in the middle of it that keeps the algae away and keeps it as clean as can be.
How's the transition been from Canberra to Goulburn?
Yeah, look, it was something I never saw coming originally. I thought I was in Canberra for life, but just with the limitations, with the two main factors was the workers' comp insurance in Canberra was extremely excessive, and the limiting factor of not being in the highways, or being at the bottom of the ballot for the highways week in, week out. We were getting sort of it was quite frustrating for owners, staff and myself. So we found a nice property here in Goulburn, and it's ended up being a great move, great for the family. The kids are really enjoying their schooling, their sport's great, and living on a farm, raising 4 kids, that's what we always wanted to do, is give them a bit of room. So they ride the motorbikes, the horses, they play tennis and basketball, and swim in the dam. So no, we love Goulburn.
It's so beautiful. It's just so quiet, isn't it?
It is. It's so peaceful. We're literally 2 kilometres out of town, but it feels like you could be hours out of town. So we love it here. This is the forever home now, and looking forward to keep building on things here at Goulburn.
Yep.
That's an alarm going off to tell me just to check my nominations are done. So you've got to set alarms for every day.
Yeah. You mentioned there you've got the young kids and everything, man. How do you juggle it? Sean would know as well. Having kids, I wouldn't. None that I'm claiming.
Half
anyway,
the extent of nephew, mate. I've only got two.
Yeah. Not as silly, but no. How do you juggle like having a full-time family, obviously, and a full-time business that it is 24/7?
Absolutely, it is 24/7. You couldn't do it if you didn't love it. It's as simple as that. My wife Amy, she does a great job with the kids. She, 4 kids is more than a full-time job. It's probably 2 full-time jobs. But so Amy looks after the kids side of things really well, and lets me do run the business. And but just being structured is the key, and not being too big. Just maintaining a sort of certain number that I mentally can handle, and I'm very sort of
kids wise or horses wise.
Yeah, horses and kids. Yeah, I think Amy wouldn't mind another one, but no, we're done. 4's enough. 4's plenty busy enough. But no, look, it is a juggle, and it's a time management, and I'm always very organised with weekly work lists, and everything's ahead of time. You've got to be quite structured, and but it is a 24/7 industry, and it's hectic. So it is a bit of a juggle. But we found Goulburn has helped us with that as well. Just it's smaller than Canberra, and just getting around town and getting to kids' sporting events and whatnot has been a lot easier. And I don't always go to the races, so on a Saturday sometimes I'll just send my staff up for the highway or whatever, and I'll be go and watch my son play footy. I'll go to the track work, get everything done with the horses, and then go and watch my son play footy and watch the highway on TV. So you got to prioritise, because it's tough on families, this game, and you got to sort of find what works for you and your family, and that's what we've done here.
And previously, like when you were at Canberra and that, did you find you were missing out on those events? Or?
Well, a little bit. If you try a little bit, yes. And the kids grow up so fast, so you definitely have to, I feel, got to be mindful of it and try and get to as many, things as you can. And a lot of the work we do, like I say, my owners know how I operate, and I'm at all the big race meetings and whatnot, and a lot of the country ones too, when we've got a lot of runners. But at the same time, I find from a time management point of view, the meetings I don't go to throughout the country, week in, week out, that I'm at home planning, programming, getting on top of other things, and that helps the overall sort of running of the business. So it's a lot of dead time travelling to and from the races. You can make a few phone calls, but you can't do a great deal of programming or, emails and things like that. So, I don't always go to the races, and that's part of the time management with juggling the kids and the horses.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Did you always want to be a horse trainer?
Yeah, grew up wanting to be a jockey originally, but quickly outgrew that, and just grew up going to the horse races from an early age. I can remember as from 5-year-old, I went to the races every Saturday with my grandparents and just loved it. So it was in my blood from a very early age, and started gambling at that sort of age too. I mean, you look back and it sounds, I suppose gambling sounds like a bit of a, a poison word to some people, but to me it taught me early on how to sort of manage money and expect, risk and reward and all those sort of things. And I didn't look at it like gambling. I looked at it as entertainment. And if I had $4 to go to the races with, back then, I'd look at it as, a lot of your friends, and as you're growing up, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, your friends might go to the local store and buy lollies, or go to the swimming pool, or be playing pinball machines. So I'm getting a full day's entertainment, watching horses and watching a sport I love and being engaged. So I looked at it as, if you lost it all, you've had a great day, and if you won, it's a bonus. So that actually put me in good stead growing up. Good for your maths as well. And, grew up loving it, and ended up going to Sydney University, their Orange campus, which is their rural campus, and studying equine business management. And that set a good platform to then sort of going into a training operation.
Yep. And if you weren't a horse trainer, what would you want to be doing?
It's hard to say, just because I grew up from such an early age living and breathing it, from 5-year old, like every weekend living and breathing it. So I wouldn't know, to be honest. I did think when I was doing work experience, I went and done work experience with a horse trainer. I'd done work experience with the stewards, and I almost went and done work experience with a stockbroker. So if I had that could have been another play. I've always loved numbers and figures and a little bit of that, I suppose, gambling side of things or risk side of things, and a little bit exciting. So, but no, we're glad we chose this path. It's a sport, it's a hobby, it's a passion, and it's your work. So
it's a lifestyle, really. Isn't it?
It's
a lifestyle.
It is. So, no, it's all worked out well. And a lot of people have often asked me why you don't try and get bigger numbers or move to Sydney or whatever throughout the years. But we found our sort of niche and our happy place, once again, like you said before, George, with the family. How do you manage that? I don't think I could manage it if I was, attempting to compete in Sydney. It's the hardest landscape in Australia and possibly, the world. So we're happy doing what we do here, and it sort of allows us to enjoy our sport but still have enough time for the family.
And we all have stories regarding racing silks. I know there's a story with yours, so can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so they were designed by my grandparents who got me into racing. 20, probably 30 odd years ago, they designed those colours. So they're quite out there colours, and particularly when you think, your grandparents designed them that long ago. So, yeah, my grandfather Alan and grandmother Anne, they designed those colours, and I started using them with my first ever runner, and they've stayed on since.
Yep, that's good.
And like you said about your first runner, that you were quite young when you started training. Did you struggle to get people to trust someone so young?
Yeah, it was interesting. I finished university and I went and worked for Gay Waterhouse for some time, learned a hell of a lot there, and Sydney wasn't really for me. After a stint there, I realised I wanted to sort of get out of Sydney. I didn't want to be there too long, and went back to Queanbeyan where I grew up and was riding track work. So there, just while I worked out what I thought was my next move, and I bought a tried horse at the tried horse sales at Inglis where they were physically, in-person sales then at the time. There was no Inglis digital. And bought it back and started training it and thought, I'll get my trainer's licence out. And he won at his first start. We paid $1,250 for him as a tried horse, and he won at his first start at Queanbeyan. I thought that was great. And then 2 starts later, he won in Sydney, and it sort of just took off from there. And then a few, different mates, families owned horses, and they might have been in city stables and gone out of form, and they'd send you one and you get a result with them. And I think my first 40 runners, I had 19 winners, and I couldn't do it. Yeah, I couldn't do that now if I tried. But
we can badge it. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, it was just, I took a lot of theories and things and back those days, and we really worked hard. I think I was charging $30 a day at the time, which is crazy. And the amount of miles we were walking, hand walking the horses and swimming them in dams and doing all the extra things. But that got results, and results is what builds your business. It's a results driven business. And so it was a bit tough to get horses at the beginning, but it all took off pretty quick.
Yeah.
Just around those results.
And what would you say the biggest challenges working as a trainer and in the industry for you?
The biggest challenges are probably the relentlessness of it, even though it's part of the game, but it is relentless. Days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years. Years fly by in this game, and there is very little opportunity to push pause and just have that bit of downtime with whether it's family, friends, or whatnot. That's probably the hardest thing to negate, and you become so involved in the operation, day in, day out, that it's hard to go away. But we book in a couple of holidays each year for the family. In the middle of winter, we go up north and get out of the Goulburn cold for a week, and then we've just come back for 4 nights down the south coast with 6 different families with 20 odd kids at a big 4 caravan park. So
you'd need another break after that.
Yeah, well, funny enough, I said I need that. Yeah, that is pretty hectic looking after the kids, but and trying to fit a few beers in between. But no, look, it's all good, and it's all, you learn year in, year out how to better manage it and whatnot. But that's probably the biggest challenges of training, is the relentlessness of it. And I'd say that is probably what's helped though in the last couple of years is the integration of different ways to communicate.
Yep.
A lot of people now use the audios and the setup in the back end to be able to communicate in real time to owners. We send out weekly updates and pre-race, post-race, post trials, and any other information that needs to go out. But that just actually, albeit you're doing more communicating on that front, it stopped the phone calls of owners wondering what's going on with my horse, because they know there's an update coming every week, and you keep
and
them
it's
updated.
like multiple. I've said that, like, from going home still, trainers are so far behind in their communication to what they are here, and they get those phone calls, and there could be 20 people in a horse.
Yeah.
So
It's not
you
sustainable.
could, you
No
could
way.
have 10 different people call you.
Yes.
Whereas if you send that one thing out,
Yep.
it's gone to everyone. There's no Chinese whispers.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that's changed and with that, it comes more expectation to continue, giving better feedback and updates and whatever. But that's really helped me not take so many phone calls, which I found was a draining part of my business back in the day, when you just never finished. You just never stopped, and you'd always have so many missed calls you were trying to get back to and whatever. So the new way of communicating is really good.
Yep.
And so that there's certainly, we say there's tough things in our game, and it's got quite tough and relentless, but at the same time there's other ways now that help that as well. So no, it's good, and it's all going well.
And I think a lot of owners don't understand, like when Lyrical ran in Sydney the other day, in the highway, we had owners say, "Oh, what do you do on Christmas Day?" And I'm like, "Well, we give our staff off and we feed the horses." And they're like, "Oh, you feed them on Christmas Day?" I'm like, yeah, they need to be fed.
Yeah,
They can't understand that it is 7 days a week,
A lot of my
24/7.
mates back home, they didn't work with horses. They were in retail, the army, carpenters and stuff, and they'd say, "Oh, what are we doing Boxing Day or Christmas Day or that?" And I'm like, working?
Yeah.
Like, you got to feed the horses still.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't push pause on this business, and it's not, in Australia, it's not like, I suppose, in other jurisdictions where they even have a break at all. Like we go 24/7 all year round. A lot of my friends say the same thing to me. Does it quieten down for you? Now that it's not the spring carnival or whatever, but it's just as busy.
The
It's
Queensland
just,
Carnival is on the horizon,
every week's busy, but it's just not in the public's eye as much as a spring or autumn carnival. But no, so it's busy. But
And I think, like, a lot of the time, in my opinion, it's not how hard you work, like, to be successful. It's nearly the sacrifices you have to make. Like, we do miss out on a lot, don't we, with our kid? Like, we try and be there for a lot of the time, but we still miss out on a lot.
Yeah,
in the
that's
industry.
right.
So
Yeah,
you do sacrifice a lot too.
You do, but that comes back, like we were saying, it's a lifestyle.
Exactly.
Whether you're a trainer, a jockey, a syndicator.
Yep.
Nearly everyone that works in this game works hard and works often. So it's, but you wouldn't do it if you didn't love it. Well, you couldn't, could you? So, there's plenty of sacrifices made, but you sort of know that going into it, and it's about sort of continually trying to manage them.
Yep.
And like, for when you do get away, mate, the odd time, and that you've obviously got a good team there that you trust and good systems and that. Was it hard, especially moving stables? Was it hard? Did you have to get a whole new team, or did they come, or like, do you not struggle, but do you find it hard to get staff like that you can trust to go away?
Staffing in Australia has been quite tough in recent years. I think you ask anyone in a horse business over the last couple of years, everyone's always been,
especially with COVID.
Yes,
in that area.
and they stopped bringing in a lot of internationals, obviously, and it really felt the pinch. A lot of people, whether it's studs, stables, etc., and a lot of riders, track work riders. But look, overall, that's probably is another thing that is helped by me not being too big. I've got a really good team of riders. In the transition period, it was a little bit hard. We had a good team come over from Canberra and really helped me get going in Goulburn. They were travelling over, and my foreman Raj still does travel. We've just manipulated sort of his work hours, and he does sort of a bigger morning rather than morning and afternoon, and we just put everything in the systems in place, and it works. So but now I've got a really good team, great bunch of track work riders. I still ride work myself, and but not relied upon to ride work. I'll just pick out 2 or 3 horses that I want to gallop or have a feel of and ride those. But I've got the team there that if I'm away, there's well and truly enough good work riders to work and good staff to run the place. But it comes down to planning, programming, and being a little bit ahead of the game with that helps you sort of, when you're away, be able to relax a little bit. You're still on, but the more you can have sort of prepped and planned, it helps you when you're away.
I think a lot of people want to hear about your success with the Kosciuszko in the Super Horse front page. First of all, how was the build-up? How was the pressure? And the day, how was it?
Yeah, look, it's a great concept, the Kosciuszko, an unbelievable concept, and over the last few years we've placed in it and been involved in it, and to 14 weeks out from this year's Kosciuszko to get the phone call that we were getting last year's winner, or offered last year's winner to train. From that moment, A, it was exciting and I was really looking forward to the challenge, but B, it was sat down and I mapped out a plan how we're going to pull it off, and we realised that the horse was really good fresh, and that the timeline I was giving him with, allowed for that. So he came to my farm here and done a couple of weeks light work, and I just wanted to lay a foundation so that if I needed to bring him out here again, he was used to the place. And then he went into town and was trained out of Goulburn, from there toward a jump out. Everything went perfectly with his preparation, almost sort of too good and too descript. And then the last couple of weeks leading into the Cosy, he just actually had a little bit of bruising in a foot, stone bruise come out. So we had to move him back out to the farm.
Yep.
And he had to increase his swimming, like I was talking about earlier, a case of he had to increase his swimming and increase his treadmill work and stay out of the sand, because the sand was putting pressure on the sole of his foot and not allowing the bruise to sort of fully heal. So that added a fair bit of pressure going into the race and a bit more stress. But once again, we had the facilities to maintain his fitness and get the job done. And he went then and trialled really well leading into it. And then come race day, he looked fantastic. The couple of weeks leading into it, he really come on, and he looked great in the parade, and his win was dynamic. He just owned the race from the get-go. And, the kick he gave there, up the rise and over the rise, and to kick by 3 or 4, 5 lengths in front,
Yep.
There was some thrill and good relief, my wife had spent a lot of time, she hadn't been very horsey up until moving to the farm, and she slowly got involved and more hands-on, and she'd spent a lot of time helping me swim him. You need 2 people to swim, and so it was a good family moment winning the Kosciuszko. Probably, one of my best moments on a race course, yeah.
That's unreal.
And in terms of the slot holder and that, their day, how did they experience it?
Yeah, so we had 2 runners in the race. Obviously, Cavalier Charles ran 4th in the same race, and he ran out of his skin to run 4th. So we had sort of 2 different style of slot holders. Front Page's slot holder, his daughter was involved in Mogo Magic. So I suppose he had 2 hats on, and he was very happy naturally to be winning the race and winning a good amount of money. But it was a bit of I suppose, mixed emotions for him, because he was cheering for his family's horse and Front Page as well. But then on the flip side, we had another guy, Paul, who chose Cavalier Charles. He was there with his mates, and they had one tunnel vision for one horse, and they had the time of their life. They got photos with Huey Bowman and really sort of embraced the day, and everyone was sent updates on each individual horses and kept them updated and made them feel part of I suppose, an owner from the day they selected the horse into the Kosciuszko. So, no, it's some thrill and some, I suppose, it's an ingenious concept. When they come up with it, it sounded good, but it's bloody good. I can't wait for it again next year.
And people like that, like the gentleman in Cavalier Charles, he'll invest in the industry now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he's already reached out and said, I'd love to get involved and buy a share in a horse.
Yep.
And he hadn't done that previously, hadn't had a share. So, and I'm sure his mates are on the same boat.
He probably thinks it's easy. They all turn out like that.
Well, he was that happy for running 4th. It was like he won the race, and they had a great time. And that's what it's about, isn't it?
Just being in the race.
Yeah,
that's
huge,
right. Yeah.
And that sums up the whole concept and the experience, bringing new people into the game, and that unique concept that had never been done before, like a raffle ticket to buy into a slot race. It works.
Yeah.
And how did you celebrate?
We went out for dinner with the owners and a few mates and a bit of family. And yeah, went and had a good feed at Last Piaggia down at Coogee, which is the go-to restaurant down there when we go to Sydney. And yeah, had a good drink and
suddenly MIA for 3 days.
Yeah. No, it wasn't that bad because we had the kids up there. Well, we agreed that we wanted the kids there. If we were going to win a Kosciuszko, we wanted the kids to be there. So we had the kids there. We did stay an extra night in Sydney, so we could have a nice day the next day too, go to the beach with the kids and have a bit of lunch and whatever. But no, it was certainly a day to remember.
So we've seen a few of our horses that do a bit of work, different work and stuff, depending on where they're at in their preparations. But yeah, we'd just talk a bit about our horses, Matt.
Yeah, the ones that are in work at the moment. So we saw this morning Maliboom just have her first gallop back. So she's then a few weeks away from a jump out. She'll have a couple of jump outs over half mile and then be ready to go back to the races. Just looking for her, we've sort of established that she's better Sydney way last preparation than she was Melbourne way. She was still solid down in Melbourne, ran 2 really good races, but I think she's better Sydney way. So we'll be looking more towards Sydney and possibly the cutest races in Brisbane as options for her over the short course. And if we can keep it a 3-year-old grade or 3-year-old fillies, even better. So she'll come up over the next few weeks and we'll start to hone in on a program for her. We saw Satin Stiletto have a gallop there this morning. She's coming up good, just going through her pre-Christmas education as a young 2-year-old. She's had a couple of jump outs. She'll trial soon.
She's been a bit surprising this prep mentally.
Yeah, mentally, because last preparation we brought her up and gave her 1 jump out, a little bit of barrier education, and she just went off the boil. Mentally, she couldn't handle it. So we gave her a short spell, brought her back, and she's then really surprised us how much she's handled this time through. So she's doing a good job and she continues to eat well, keep her head in the game. She'll go through to the trials and possibly onto the races, all being equal. So she's been one that's surprised us, his preparation, in a good way.
And a horse like her, like, she's not big in stature. What did you think, like, when Sean sent her, when she rocked up?
Yeah, from a physical point of view, she's small and they can go one way or the other. They can be, generally those small horses, they need a bit of will about them and they can go early. But if they don't and they don't grow, you can be in a bit of trouble. But they come in all shapes and sizes, and you also saw another one of my horses there this morning, which I think surprised you both, Acapella Sun, who's a solid Saturday grade horse. She's tiny.
Yeah.
But
I'd probably it's fair to say she's nearly the same size, if not smaller.
Yeah, she's obviously, more...
but just a lot of heart.
Yeah, she's more seasoned
more
and thick and whatever,
she,
similar size. So they do come, if they've got the will to win, which a lot of these fillies do, they come in all shapes and sizes. So no, happy with her. Who else did we see? We've got Lyrical Beauty has gone for a break.
Yep.
She was great.
Super Norwest. She's just coming up through her work. She had a jump out last week. She'll have another jump out soon and then be ready to go to the races. Still just working her out, trying a few different bits of gear or lack of gear on her, and but she's going along well. And then the other babies are just coming through the system.
Rich Rapport has been a bit slower, like with certain issues we've
very
had.
Very much so. Rich Rapport, a very slow maturing horse, mentally as much as physically. So hopefully she can come up this preparation. She's just about to start through a pace work and gallop work, and hopefully she can get up and have a jump out in a trial and get a good assessment on her. So, and a few of your other babies are due back in soon.
Yep.
Couple of the boys.
Son of Eureka,
he gave me
next
the
week.
Nakoni. He's a really nice horse. He's got a good movement. He went Shinsaw at the end of his educational prep, so he's had a nice 8 weeks out and he'll be back. I'm looking forward to seeing him. He showed terrific.
Yeah, that's great. We seen him yesterday.
Yeah. And a couple others are in the paddock and not too far off coming back either. So no, your team's going well.
What was it about? I still remember the phone call, and remember you rang me with Malibu and you said, I think this could be one of the best 2-year-olds I've had. What was it? What not our horse, it could be any other horse that you have in the stable. What jumps out to show you those signs?
Yeah, look, a lot of it's the mental side of things, how they handle the increase in pressure and education.
Like Penthouse obviously was another one.
No, it's one... just when we're putting her through the barrier education and jumping out of the gates and that increasing gallop work, I love to see the way they come back to the stables and keep their head in the game. It hasn't sort of fried them. They handle it. They're natural racehorses, and she was that from the get-go, and you have to be to win a stakes race at your second start. Come out as proof in the pudding, I suppose. But she just showed us from the get-go. She just handled everything like she was a natural-born racehorse, and they're the little things, the little idiosyncrasies you look for in the young horses, is their just ability to cope mentally as much as anything.
And if you could change one thing, if you were in charge of racing Australia today, 24 hours, what would you change?
Yeah, interesting question. I'd like some time, ideally, to sit down and think about that.
Well, you don't have
Put him on the spot. No comment.
It'd probably be something around making racing a little bit more routine, a little bit more predictable when you're racing. Obviously you got like the likes of Hong Kong. I know it's a totally different jurisdiction, but they know what's coming. It's Wednesday, it's twice a week, and a lot of the industry participants thrive off that, and so do a lot of people who bet on the races, the punters, because you know what's coming, you can do your form. I'd love to, even if it was within different areas, to know. We used to race back when I was growing up, it used to be Canberra one Saturday, Queanbeyan the next. You knew what was coming. I know the landscape's changed, but I'd love some more routine to your week, because quite often you don't know what day it is. You wake up and you got to remind yourself what day it is, and I know a lot of the jockeys find that as well. So that'd be probably the biggest thing, if we could just look at a little bit more structure to where you race and when, and some routine to that. I think looking into that would be beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, that's a tough question, that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's good that Hong Kong, and it's more season, because they get, a quarter off, don't they? 2 or 3 months off? Yeah,
and I understand, obviously, we're a turnover-driven business, and it'd be nearly impossible to push pause on our racing for that long. But yeah, like I say, just having that set routine, myself, I'd love that. I'd just love to know where you're going and when, a little bit more, routinely, as opposed to sort of some weeks you're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at the races, and other weeks you've got nothing in the same area. You've just got your metro races. So that would be something I'd like to work on. Yeah.
One race you would like to win as a trainer?
There's a fair few that I'd like to win. But, obviously, with that too, the landscape's changed so much. The people class them as pop-up races, but they're the big races now, like an Everest is probably the pinnacle, isn't it?
And the fact, you win one, or an Everest or a Nivison, whatever it might be, these new races, King Charles, because they're not group or listed yet, there's no penalty. So you win all this prize money, and you can still go on to your other races without having to carry those extra weights. And
obviously your benchmark still goes up, but it is interesting, and I don't know where that's all going to end up. I mean, how the Everest isn't a Group 1, I don't know. Obviously, it's in the back end, but because of it's a selected field and not your normal set up for a Group 1, but it's the best sprint race in the world, so if you ask me, you did ask me the race I'd like to win, I'd say the Everest. I'd love to win like a TJ as well. We placed,
and you've had a runner like Fell Swoop running the Everest,
yep. And we placed a couple of times with Fell Swoop in the TJ. Love to win that race as well. It's an outstanding sprint race in the autumn.
History of it,
absolutely. Quality year in, year out. It stood up, and it's an awesome race. I'd love to win a TJ. People, the easy question, you'd love to win a Melbourne Cup, but it's sort of, I'd love to win a Melbourne Cup, but at the same time, if I had to pick a few races, it'd be a little bit further down the list.
Yep, that's fair. Well, I guess we'll tell the viewers of the competition you're running.
Yeah, so we're looking for our listeners' stories, best punting stories, whether it's your best wins or best, or not best, obviously, no one has best losses,
beat.
But you're just good stories. And you, obviously, Matty, you said you started out as a punter. So what was the first bet you had? Did it win?
Well, the first bet I remember is a trifecta that I had with my grandfather's horse, and I've got the photo up in the wall in the shed here. And
of the trifecta.
Yeah, the trifecta. And when my grandfather passed away, I said I want that photo, and it's in the man shed now. So of the trifecta, I had 50 cents straight, and got back $30-something, and I was hooked. That was outstanding, and straight trifecta. And that was my, I suppose back then, I think I was 6 years old. That was such a massive thrill to be able, pick them in order and to, get rewarded with the money. So that was great. And, over the years we've had some, growing up, I had some, good moments in the early days where you just sort of were able to set horses and you're an unknown trainer, so to speak, and travel out to far-flung places. There was a lot more bookmakers on course back in those days, and be able to sort of have a decent bet and get a result, and that was some thrill. And probably in more modern times, winning a couple of good multis has been good as well.
Yep. My first was $5 on Might and Power in the Melbourne Cup.
Yep.
And he just fell in, so that was my first. What was your memory in your first one?
I think we went racing one day. It was just a midweek meeting, like not many people there and that. And in the lead up to, my dad had this, he's a builder, and he had a labourer with him, and he said, we're not working today, we're going racing. So mate had never been to the races, and he said to him, what do I wear? And Dad was like, you have to wear full suit, tie, everything. So we picked up mate, and he got in the car, and Dad was in a pair of jeans and everything, and mate gets in fully dressed up in a suit. And I went there, and I had my £1 or €1 or something, and I picked this horse because it was named after my uncle's dog, and it won at 50 to 1. And
yeah, right.
I was hooked from there. And they say like the worst thing that can happen to you is a gambler is his first horse wins. And it's definitely true anyway, because you just get hooked then.
Yeah. Your best and worst beats, email them, george@kbloodstock.com.au, and we'll put them on the potty, and we'll get a bit of a laugh. I think that's it. Thanks, Matt, for your time. We really appreciate it. Beautiful place, love it, and the facilities are amazing.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.